everyone. Thank you so much for joining the Transportation Alliance today for our webinar discussing how you can take advantage and use a whole host of resources and tools that are free for you as Massachusetts operators in the coming year to help you support and enhance your business. A few housekeeping items as we get started here. This meeting is being recorded, and we will be posting the recording on the Ride Local Massachusetts website. That's www.ridelocalma.com, where you'll be able to find all of the resources from this. So the recording will be available on Ride Local Massachusetts, as well as our YouTube channel. I'm thankful today for our consultants who have supported this project, who are here today to talk through the resources that are available to you and how they can support you and your operations. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Natalie Parra, who is from Z-Trip, to talk a little bit to you about some recruiting and retention tools and resources.
Thank you, Amanda. So I am Natalie Parra. I'm with Z-Trip. We are the largest taxi cab operation in the US. I just went through our 2021 stats, and we had a little over 37,000 applicants last year through all of our cities. So not only are we still able to find applicants, but we're also building a fantastic database of people that have considered to drive, and that is through our 26 locations. For the Mass grant, I have put together a recruit and retention book, and also have done a PowerPoint and webinar on what we call Z metrics, or metrics and data, to how to run your business more efficiently. Both of those can be found on the Ride Local Mass website and also on the YouTube channel. And I look forward to continuing to help this and support the Massachusetts folks in how do we get more drivers into your fleet as we go through the Great Resignation. And I will hand it on over to Jeb Corey.
All right. Thanks, Natalie. So my name is Jeb. I run a small operation in Charleston, West Virginia, usually on average between about 25 and 30 cars. So I do really get and understand everything from a small operator perspective. And over the last year and a couple months with this program, we put together a lot of good information. And one of those was really how, like, a deep dive into your operations and how to expand into NEMT business and account business, right? Because anything you can use just fleet for, if you can expand and take on other types of business, you want to do it because you already have those resources in place. So did a great webinar on that that's available on all the resources to everybody. We put together a handbook on driver and passenger safety, and it was very lengthy, about 25 plus pages of just phenomenal information from over the years on how to keep drivers and passengers and the general public as safe as possible. And I also put together a webinar that we did on websites, and we talked about all kinds of websites, the importance of a website, what basic websites look like, what in-depth websites look like, what you can accomplish with different ranges of budgets, what makes sense for a transportation provider to use on the website, and again, a lot of in-depth information. And so we have the driver and passenger safety handbook, and then you have those 3 webinars that were produced. And if you have not seen them, I'm telling you right now, go look at those items and all the other items everybody else has produced, because it is, if I started off in this business or did not know any of this stuff, this would be phenomenal for me, right? So anybody, even if you've been around for a long time, if you're new to this business, the amount of information this group has produced over the last year is phenomenal and it's amazing. So you definitely want to look it up on the website and YouTube, and do not pass it up. It's free and it's great. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Joe Rubino.
Thank you very much, Jeb. My name is Joe Rubino, as Jeb said, and I am a 48-year veteran of this industry. I started as a driver for 2 years. Then I became a manager, eventually an executive. And then I became part owner of the company. I started in this business with a taxi company that was 40 vehicles. And we eventually built that up into 343, I think, at our highest. Along the way, we added all the other modalities that you might be interested in or that you might be running. We added non-emergency medical, paratransit, bus, all kinds of bus, all kinds of premier services. So I'm kind of a generalist in what I've experienced. My role in this effort here in Massachusetts is to kind of use my experience in the industry to help convey some of that support and information to Massachusetts fleets. Since 2002, I've been a consultant, so I'm in the 20th year of my consulting practice. And I have worked in 47 states. The only states I haven't worked in are North Dakota, South Dakota, and Montana. I worked everywhere else, so I'm anxious to get to those three. But I also was part in the 90s, from 96 to 2002, of Coach USA, which was the largest taxi company at the time, prior to Z-Trip now being the largest. We were in 22 cities, and most of those we ran taxis. So I have a lot of experience in going from a small taxi company to a large one, and then doing all the other services. So what I offer this group is I'm trying to, I overlap a little with what Natalie is doing and what Jeb is doing, and also with what my next speaker, Michael Chapke, is doing. But what I'm doing basically is trying to help you folks make your fleets better, make more money, build it with not just more drivers, but have your drivers be more successful. So here's what I brought to this project so far. My main deliverables that I've authored so far, about I think 28 editions of a service called Driver Pro Tips. I think maybe 24, 25 have been published so far, but these are twice a month lessons. And this is a Driver Pro Tips is a business lesson. Some people call it a newsletter. It's really not a newsletter. It's a business lesson. It is a lesson designed to train drivers after they are on the road. So if you are operating a fleet, you can use these Driver Pro Tips in your training class, but they're going to have more effectiveness if you use them for drivers that are already on the road and trying to sort things out. I've always believed that the taxi industry is a little flawed, and that we only offer a very small amount of training. Oftentimes we're using cloning, where Jim rides with Joe. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to elevate that with the Driver Pro Tips. They also address the fact that in the taxi industry, we straddle two industries. We're not only in the transportation industry, we're in the hospitality industry. So I'm not only going to cover issues like passenger safety, driver safety, vehicle safety. I'm going to cover issues like customer service, and hospitality. But I'm going to get mainly into business development, and that is how you can teach your drivers to help them make more money, because the more money the drivers make, the more money you're going to make. So besides these columns, I've also written a couple of columns for you, for the fleet operator. I've written a column about how becoming a certified as a non-emergency medical transportation company through NEMT, which Michael Chapke is going to talk about in a minute, would help you. And I've also talked about the fact that I've served as an expert witness on hundreds of cases in this country involving people that get hurt in for-hire transportation. And it just shows the companies that do well in those cases and are able to fight the claims off are the ones who have done a proper amount of training with their drivers and can justify that. I've also did a webinar on, an article on training versus cloning. I referred to that earlier in my presentation. Cloning a driver is when you have one driver ride with another. You don't train him, you're just copying him. Whatever that other driver skills were, now this one has it. Training is when you have a program which teaches a driver to be able to make money. If you're a company that struggles with, drivers who last 1 or 2 days, and then they are 1 or 2 weeks, 1 or 2 months, and they fail, that's what I'm going for, to keep those people out there. I've always felt if you can keep them for 6 months, you can keep them for 6 years. So that's my goal. And finally, I delivered 2 webinars. One was about increasing your revenues via contracting opportunities, and teaching you how to get more contracting, whether it's government contracting or private contracting. And then the second webinar was about improving your actual proposals. So in other words, it's not just enough to go after your contracts, it's to have a good proposal, learn how to compete. So if you're a 20-car company and you're competing against a 200-car company, learning to write a good proposal is obviously going to help you. All right, so that's what I've basically produced so far with the driver pro tips, the other articles to management, and the webinars. And now we'll pass it over to my colleague, Michael Shapke.
Thank you, Joe. That was fantastic. As I'm sitting here, before I even introduce myself, it just dawned on me, and I know it because we interact, regularly, the level of expertise that we have, sitting on this call, sitting on this webinar, and the folks that support the grants through the Transportation Alliance is really remarkable. And each one of us check off an interesting box, right? And it just, again, Jeb said it earlier, is just everybody has their lane in the way that they're presenting things. So whether it's website development, marketing, business development, recruitment, retention, these are so important. Every one of those are important today, right now. These are tools that you can use today. I contribute to this in a different way, but very complimentary. Again, my name is Michael Shapke, formerly. I'm the founder, and I sit on the board for the Non-Emergency Medical Transportation Accreditation Commission. It's always a mouthful. And we are the ANSI, American National Standard Institute, standard developer for the NEMT industry. And we're like, what does that mean? Because we have a lot of other things happening over at NEMTAC. But first and foremost is that we identified, early on that the industry generally, this is non-emergency medical transportation side of it, is very fragmented, right? There's 19,000 providers out there, 250 to 300,000 drivers or employees and or contractors. But it's still a very small business-oriented industry, meaning 82% of this industry is 12 vehicles or less. And folks need help, right? If you're in a small provider world, your world is very, very busy every day, right? If that means that you're probably even driving, you're managing, and you have employees or contractors to deal with. So with that, there's been an opportunity, and there's an opportunity to start laying some groundwork for some national standards, whether it's credentialing, some standardization on credentialing, whether it's some education, whether it's accreditation of NEMT companies. That's really in our wheelhouse. That's what NEMTAC does. We're excited. It's been a 3-year journey. Three and a half years journey but we're teed up to introduce the first set of national standards for an entire industry this year. In fact, I think we're gonna have several of them coming out of our advisory groups. And these standards are consensus driven. The industry has told us what to do. It's not Mike's ideas or anybody on, or even any single person. This is coming out of the industry, and it'll be very, very, very positive stuff for everybody, because it'll start giving some direction, I think, and some structure. It's going to help every owner operator down the road. So that's what NEMTAC is, and kind of what we are doing for everybody out there. For this particular grant and for the folks in Massachusetts, I humbly serve at your leisure, but I've been writing articles since inception last year. There's a series of articles coming out every month in the Transportation Insights digital magazine. I try to write at because you see where everybody's got their own coverage of what their expertise is. I generally am trying to give industry level, like 30,000 foot level topics, whether it's integration of transportation providers into the healthcare system, the legislation that's happened, or the rules and regulations that have changed. So I try to keep everybody up to date on that. I'd love to hear suggestions. If you do have topics, please always feel free to get a hold of me through this venue or even directly through NEMTAC. I'm always looking for stuff to write about. So there's a handful of articles. Those are published. They are up. Amanda sent out those links for all of our stuff. And what a fantastic resource, right? Again, a library of information that's being accumulated for this grant, which it couldn't be anything better. It's going to help everybody in Massachusetts, and really it's helping the industry along as we move along. I've also been a part of three, coordinated or collaborated on three distinct webinars. One is, and it kind of follows along with what Joe just said about certification and accreditation, right? Because right now, you look at that, either one, if certifying your driver or you're accrediting your company, can seem like an unfunded mandate or an expense line. And of course, we're advocating it's not an expense. It's a way to reduce your liability, reduce the risk for your operation. So Joe doesn't have to defend your operation or be the star witness against your operation because something unfortunate happened. But it is also, it's the way to set ourselves apart. We are healthcare providers. If you're doing NEMT, you are part of the healthcare continuum, and there are this mechanism of becoming driver certified and or company accredited is just a signal to the payers, the insurance companies, the MCOs, the brokers that are out there, that you're taking that extra step to make sure that you're contributing and you're going to get those opportunities. Will you get paid more? Absolutely. Will it be today? Not quite. So the whole industry is gearing up and working very, very hard to increase the margins, right? I painfully know how hard it is to make your day work in the margins that you guys work with. So and NEMTAC is not ever going to be in a position of trying to do unfunded mandates. We're there to support you. And part of structure of getting certified drivers or accreditation, or really taking a focus on safety and health and safety of your operations, is to reduce your expenses and increase revenue. And if you just have that in the back of your head, you're going to succeed. So I'd be happy to take anything offline or questions later about those specific programs. So articles have been written, webinars have been developed, and they're going to continue into 2022. Probably the biggest piece of this is, and it would be so unfortunate if we didn't get more of these dollars out, is that through the Transportation Alliance, the Mass Development, which is the economic development group, right, for the state, has released a tremendous amount of money just specifically for training your drivers and accrediting your companies to the tune of six figures, well into the six figures, that we still have left remaining of those dollars to be spent. So if you're an operator or a driver inside of Massachusetts, everything I just said about driver education and company accreditation is free. And that's not, you never see, usually the F word is associated with not good stuff. So this F word, free, 4 letters, free training, free accreditation, and free certification for your drivers is available. The information is on the website. And please, this is a use it or lose it type of dollars. And the last thing I think I want to do, no disrespect to anybody in the government, is give our money back to the government. So it's very rare that NEMT operators get to see any type of grant funding. In fact, this is the first time that I know of that a state hasn't freed up that type of dollars, and it would be a terrible thing to not be able to utilize it. So spread the word. We have done training in Massachusetts. I think I just saw, I think even Courtney's on the phone. She's an owner operator of a fantastic operation. I won't even say that, outside of Boston. But she hosted a certified transport instructor course for our stretcher and wheelchair operations. I think we now have 6 or 7 trained instructors inside of your state. Some of those folks, if not all of them, were grant funded. So she was able to take advantage of that, and we always appreciate that. So don't be the only, let her be the only operation, because she's on the phone, she'll kill me. The only operation that takes advantage of that. We do need qualified instructors in the state. Their programs are there, they're being funded, and we'd love to have you and have you join us. So I think that is all I have. And what I'm going to do, again, thank you for everybody's their expertise. I always enjoy collaborating with everybody, and I'm going to turn it over to Amanda. Back to Amanda.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I've been adding some links into the chat here as folks have been going through talking about where you can find some specific resources. But I'm Amanda. I'm with TTA's communications team. We are communications, strategic communications and public relations firm operating along the East Coast of the United States with office in Boston. So John, my colleague, is located right outside of Boston. And we're thrilled to have been supporting this project. A couple of things I want to highlight that, you know, our additional resources you can find that we've put out this year, and then talk a little bit about what you can expect for the rest of 2022, because in an exciting update, we are able to continue to extend these benefits to you through the end of this year. So we've talked a little bit about the driver pro tips resource that has come out. In addition to that, you are also should be receiving 2 newsletters from TTA. The first is a multi times per week newsletter that highlights, called Media Watch, that is a summary of the top 12 stories in the transportation industry. Just a way for you to wake up and say, hey, what's new and going on in this industry for the day, and give you the latest. What you should also keep an eye out for within that newsletter is we include any relevant RFPs that we find specific to Massachusetts companies. So for example, if they're looking for specific work that is relevant to the taxi and livery and transportation industry, we include those. So keep an eye out. Those aren't every day, but as we come across them, usually there's at least one a week going out. We also have our Transportation Insights newsletter, which is a monthly resource that features information and business ideas that is supposed to help drive your business and our industry forward. So we produce those in the first part of the month. You'll see those come through. Michael contributes an article, and we usually highlight a lot of the resources that are available to you that month. We also include an update in there from our legislative council about what's happening in Washington, D.C., since obviously that impacts everybody's operations, what's going on in Congress. We've also produced a series of 3 public relations handbooks to help you, no matter what level your public relations is at within your organization. And so the first is how do you even approach public relations, and where do you begin? The second is dealing with crisis communications. I think almost every day we see companies, not just in the transportation industry, but across multiple industries, that have major issues, or even small local issues that can be major for your community. And this handbook provides you with information on how to address, hopefully ahead of time, to ensure you have the operations needed to address a crisis. But if not, it gives you a handbook and steps for how to respond in a crisis. And the final one is an overview of social media, which we've gotten into so much detail about social media during a series of 6 webinars, all available on the Ride Local Massachusetts website and TTA's YouTube channel. These dive into everything from Facebook and LinkedIn to Twitter and TikTok, which is a very exciting tool that has a lot of potential for transportation operators to really make some connections within your community and engage not only with your current customers, but also attract future customers. So we've got a handbook that outlines the social media, but the webinars have gone into really deep detail on most platforms and will help you to decide which platform actually makes the most sense for your company, because you have to be strategic about it, and it doesn't make sense for you to join every single platform, but whatever one helps get towards your goals. Probably the most visible part of this grant is the Ride Local Massachusetts website. I've mentioned this a couple times as along with the other folks on this call, and it's where we're housing all of these free resources for you. Ride Local Massachusetts is going to remain available to you throughout all of 2022. On it, you can find all of the content, including our driver spotlight series, which highlights local drivers and their companies to help put faces to names, because as we all know, people like to engage with humans as opposed to you know, a blank face and screen. So they like to put a name to the industry. We've got our webinar library, we've got handbooks. We also, very importantly, have a directory of companies that are in Massachusetts, where the public can go enter in their zip code and they'll be connected with a company that is within a certain distance from them. And so this is a way to help us drive new business to your operations. If you are not yet on the directory and you would like to, you can submit your information directly on the Ride Local Massachusetts website under the Catch a Ride section. So take a look at that. You can also put a note in the chat here and I can follow up with you directly if you're having issues with that. And then we've had a very large public awareness campaign running throughout Massachusetts on the radio station, as well as at Logan Airport, on the commuter rails, and oh my gosh, John, I'm forgetting. That's
Yeah,
it. On the radio. I'm sorry.
WGBH, the
Thank you,
public
WGBH.
radio broadcaster, the commuter rail stations, and
Logan.
Logan Airport.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry. I spaced for a moment. So those ads have been running for the past few months, and those are helping to drive people directly to the Catch a Ride directory. So there's a lot of resources already available to you. And like I said, there's really great news here in that these resources are all going to continue to be available to you throughout all of 2022. So anytime that you're looking for what's the latest, you can go to the ridelocalma.com and you'll find the resources. We're also going to be continuing our monthly webinar series through October, and we'll have some dates available in the coming weeks for you to mark off your calendar, but these will focus on the NEMT industry, as well as some marketing and business recommendations and advice. So keep an eye out for those. So lot we threw at folks here, and there is, like we said, a lot of resources available to you. Again, everything is housed on the Ride Local Massachusetts website, but want to open it up in case folks have questions on anything that we've discussed, anything moving forward. You know, this is an opportunity for you to ask us questions on some specific programming, or if you have questions about like how to apply for the scholarships. If not, so I want to just quickly open it up in case anyone has questions. I got a question here from someone for Michael. You mentioned the scholarships that are still available. Can you give us a couple examples of how we can use them, and then where we can apply for these scholarships, and how soon we should apply for them.
Yeah, absolutely. The application is super simple. I don't think we could have made it easier to apply for and for it to be granted. It is on the driver section of the ridelocalma.com website. So click on the tab for drivers, scroll down halfway through, you'll see all the information on the application process. Again, pretty simple, pretty quick turnaround time. The process, it does get reviewed. We do some confirmation validation of your provider status inside of the state. And then it gets handed over to our learning management system partners or NEMTAC, and you'll receive a link, confirmation that that's done. And this is specific to the driver training. So the Certified Transport Specialist certification is eligible for this grant, for these grant dollars. And this is a program for the individual drivers. It times out at about 5 hours. That's all online, and it's a national certification. It's the only one that exists. And it's a 2-year certification for your drivers to go through a whole host of topics that is going to improve customer service, service delivery, again, reducing risks, reducing that liability. And what we do try to do inside of the CTS program is cover most, not everything, because it's hard. It was difficult, but try to cover most of what the brokers and or payers are requesting that you need to have covered. So there's fraud, waste, and abuse training. There's ADA training. There's HIPAA training. Things, those boxes that you need to check off when you're credentialing your drivers. There's a good chunk of that is contained inside of that course curriculum. So the course objectives are also on the nemtac.org website. You can take a look at that, see what you or your drivers will be going through. It's a fantastic course. And especially if you're a new driver or if you're even a new company, I'm telling you that, and don't take my word for it, but business opportunities and the way you're viewed by having certified drivers or your company becoming accredited, it just sells itself. So I don't want to overstate it, but we've had some very, very good anecdotes and success stories of folks that have taken that journey with us. So CTS, Certified Transport Specialist dollars are available, completely funded. That whole, you can apply if you have 20 drivers. I think there's a maximum, but you're pretty much your drivers will be certified if you want them to be certified. The next piece that's eligible is company accreditation. So NEMTAC company accreditation, much more involved than having a driver go through the course. But this is the national accreditation program that takes a look at your organization. You can be a new organization, but you definitely have to structure around it. If you want to see what it takes to become an accredited company, please go to nemtac.org. You can download our self-assessment guide, and inside of that self-assessment guide is really, it's either how to start up a business and or how to operate a business 101. If you kind of follow that and check the boxes, even if you've never become accredited or apply for accreditation, it's a very useful tool to just kind of benchmark yourself and see where you are, and maybe there's some gaps that you can fill or things that you're doing really well that you should pat yourself on the back for. So our accreditation document and the accreditation process it's fleet dependent, depending on the number of vehicles in your fleet. But the price maxes out, I believe, is I should know. It's $3,500. So at the maximum, and that's for a very large fleet, over 50 vehicles. So it's a very affordable way to set yourself up and become a market differentiator inside of your area. So that is also covered by the grant. There is accreditation for your company, certification for your driver. Use that F word again, are free. And right at local MA is where you go find it. We also have conflict of interest. There were some payers and brokers that wanted to see this program. Conflict training, verbal judo, and how to interact with challenging communication styles. It's a 1-hour course, and that is also covered inside of this grant. So did I answer that question right? I think I did.
Yes, thank you. A few other things in case you've already applied and are taking advantage of some of these awesome programs through NEMTAC. If you're also interested in having your staff trained on defensive driving, going through the defensive driving course through the there's a specific nationwide
Yeah,
one.
National Safety Council. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Defensive
That
driving.
one,
Yeah, I think that's what we're doing.
And we can also do the scholarships for things like CPR training or sensitivity training. So those are other areas where if you're interested, please send us a note and we can help get you connected in the right areas. So
Use those dollars. Yeah.
yes, and use those dollars because it's on a first come, first serve basis. And once that money runs out, there is no more. So you want to make sure to get in there early and take advantage of that now. Thank you, Michael. Also, if folks have questions at any point, please feel free to unmute yourself or do the little hand raise option, little reaction. I'll look at your smiley face on there, whatever you want and are comfortable with. So please feel free to jump in. I have another question here, and Jeb, I think this one's probably going to be best for you. Since technology is rapidly evolving, is there anything new that's out currently or will be out soon that might be able to help transportation providers?
Yeah, so I think in today's day and age, technology really pushes everything. No matter what your industry is or what you're involved with, technology is the basis for everything these days. And so I've always been super keen on it, and I always try to keep an eye on, what's available now and what's kind of coming in the future, because there might be things out there that, look interesting, but really aren't up to par yet, or maybe too expensive, especially for smaller companies, but you want to keep your eye on it. One thing that we've been paying attention to really is artificial intelligence. And I think at some point in time, that's going to be a huge game changer for a lot of things. I don't really, in my opinion, I don't really see any true artificial intelligence out there. I see a lot of semi-intelligent stuff. So I'm not sure we're at the Terminator movies quite yet, but I think we're kind of heading somewhat in that direction, hopefully not in a negative one. But one thing that we do kind of see it playing a role in is camera technology. So we have cameras inside our vehicles and we have cameras around our facility. And what we're starting to play around with is, semi-artificial intelligence built into these devices that are capable of reviewing what's happening and making some decisions. So for instance, in a vehicle, we've been using cameras for about 20 years now, actually. And, back when we first put the cameras in, it took a human to monitor everything, right? There's an event, you had to pay attention to the event, you had to tag it to maybe a vehicle, you had to tag it to maybe a person. You had to see what kind of event that was. You had to create a scorecard yourself. And what you're seeing now today is artificial intelligence is doing that for people and companies. And I remember a long time ago too, everybody said, big companies, it was hard to put this type of technology in because, for a small company like me, we may be reviewing a few events every day and it's really not a big deal. But for, larger companies like Natalie with Z-Trip, I mean, the largest taxi cab company in the country, they would be reviewing, thousands of videos. And to have humans do it can be quite intensive. And to have artificial intelligence do it may be able to, free up some of that stuff. And so, we have a few vehicles that have some artificial intelligence cameras in it, and, they're starting to recognize facial recognition. So we no longer really have to tag the driver. Artificial intelligence is like, okay, it's this driver. Okay, that takes up some time. And it's, before they had G-forces, right? So G-forces would say, okay, a driver's slamming on the brakes too hard or taking a turn too fast, and you would get some of that basic information. But now artificial intelligence can tell other things like distracted driving. It can pay attention to the driver's eyes. Are they looking down for a period of time? Are they on their cell phone? Are they covering up the camera? Things that wouldn't really trigger a sensor, but the AI inside the camera, what it sees visually, it can analyze and create a scorecard or give an alert. And so I find that extremely fascinating, especially, like I said, the stuff we have right now, it's okay. It's very interesting, but I think as it moves forward and gets better, when you have a device in the car that can use artificial intelligence to not only analyze a scenario and provide feedback to a company, but be proactive in offering advice to a driver, right? If it's like following distance, right? That's a huge important thing in transportation. You don't want to follow too closely to another vehicle and also not be paying attention and looking down at a cell phone, because you're more than likely to rear end that car in a potential accident. So if artificial intelligence can identify those things, right, and say, okay, you're clearly following too close to a vehicle, and kind of beeps or warns or lets a driver know, and that helps kind of help improve driving behavior over time, and then can help prevent accidents. So, one of the things that I did throughout the year was we did a safety driver and passenger safety handbook and webinar. So this is taking all that to the next step, right? Having a device that can, basically help coach drivers and prevent accidents from happening. And that's really what you want to do. I know it's helpful to have information after an accident happens, but at that point, it's kind of too late. We really want to prevent accidents. We don't want anybody getting hurt. We don't want property damage. We don't want anything like that happening. So if artificial intelligence in the long run can really reduce that, or even potentially eliminate it, right? Because if you start connecting that to the intelligence that are in cars, right? So if you can identify following too close or someone in front of you slamming on the brakes, not only warn the driver, but then the car itself applies brakes so it does not rear end another vehicle, you really kind of get into some really helpful scenarios. We talk about autonomous vehicles, you hear about autonomous vehicles all the time, and true autonomy to the degree of which everybody dreams of is still far way off. But what we're seeing is trickle down technology with cars that can kind of break themselves or have some artificial intelligence involved in them. And so I think that's going to be something very fascinating, something that's going to grow very quickly over the next several years and become very helpful. And that same technology we also use at our facility. We just put up about 6 cameras around our facility, and these cameras do the same thing, right? I mean, older cameras kind of would identify things if there's an issue, but if a dog ran in front of it, you get a push notification, or if a giant spider ran across the screen, or appears to be a giant spider, because when it comes across the screen, it's like, it's all big and scary and stuff, right? Really, it's little, but anyway, so artificial intelligence and cameras around your facility can now really identify what's happening. So it can identify a human doing something wrong versus a dog or an insect or something like that. And then so what happens with our system that does that, it then identifies the scenario, identifies whether it's an issue that a human needs to know about. Not only will I get a push notification of the event, but a push notification will go to a central company or live guard somewhere, and either live guards or myself can then interact. So we can then actually talk to whatever is happening or see what's happening, or hit an alarm and say, okay, these people are clearly trying to break into a vehicle or into a building. If they're not going to talk to us, but we can go ahead and hit an alarm and call authorities. And so, artificial intelligence is playing a really cool role in that as well. So those are the kind of the two, one major thing that we're really focusing on multiple aspects.
It's great. Michael, I think.
Yeah, I just want to add on to it. Jeb, you're spot on about the telematics and in-camera, in-vehicle monitoring that's occurring. It's absolutely, positively a must-have, and it's hard. It's easier when you have one vehicle and grow with it than it is if you have 20 or 30, because there is an expense associated. Although that expense has come down dramatically because you're now, right? Technology, the equipment, everything is way, way, way more affordable than it used to be. That is going to make it into national standards. There's a track on in-vehicle cameras now inside of our technology advisory board that is going to recommend as best practices in this version, which is 2.0. 3.0 next year or the year following, it's to become accredited. You're going to have that vehicle, that type of technology inside of it. And it's sort of, I don't think we need to talk anymore about the benefits of it, but I will say there's someone on this phone call that sent me a video. They had just installed a very large fleet operator, maybe the largest in the United States, looking at one person in the camera, but they sent me this video clip. They had just installed this technology, and they have a driver driving down the street, and you see somebody walking on the sidewalk, just right in front of the car. It deliberately, purposely jumped in front, over the hood, vehicle slams on the brakes. You have no idea. The driver would, if they didn't have that camera, the driver would have thought that they hit somebody on purpose, or that there was a fault there, and that incident didn't go past the officer looking at the camera. I mean, it was it. There's no lawsuits, there's no liability, and the long story short was, unfortunately, it was a person with some mental illness, and a voice told him to do that. But that dramatically, just saved everybody's day there, right? And by the way, the person wasn't really hurt, but it was dramatic to see it. It's on my YouTube channel if you want to go look at it. I put it, it's blinded, it's fantastic. I use that as a training device. It's an amazing video to watch. In-vehicle monitoring, in-vehicle cameras, it's not a fad. It's going to be required both by your regulator and through accreditation coming up. Go.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you both. That's helpful. Natalie, when it comes to increasing recruitment efforts, what's the most effective thing I can add to my operations to increase those efforts?
Automation. So some sort of a form that has trigger-based reactions. So when someone applies, it does X, whether it's an email or a text, and then adding those automations to any applicant that comes in. And that's not just for applicants. It's for your entire fleet, whether it's work orders in the shop, or it's an accident, or but adding some sort of form, whether, and there's several free ones out there, if not free, very inexpensive, whether it's Jot Form, it's FormStack, Smartsheet, adding those so that you can reach the applicant as soon as they apply, because anyone that is good is looking for a job is going to go find another job. There's, I don't know, 70 million open positions right now. And making sure that they are being reached as soon as they apply, so you don't lose them. And then also apply on your own site and see how it is being handled. If you have someone in your staff that you think is doing a great job, just double check on it. Make sure that it's handled the way you want it to be handled. It's kind of like taking a trip every now and again in one of your cars. And then I did want to add on to something Michael was talking about on the accreditation. Almost every, and this has nothing to do with recruitment, but it does go to the importance of getting his accreditation. Every single work comp company offers grants and safety grants, and you can apply for the safety grant on what you are doing to improve your work comp claims. Doing his course or following what we are offering here for free could also get you some free money. There's, I look at them all the time. There's several work comp companies, and I don't know, who do you use, but most of them offer some sort of a $10,000 grant that you can use to improve safety. And doing what Michael's offering is an easy win in my book. I'm sure if you asked him to, he'd help you write that grant. Because he doesn't have enough to do.
Yeah. Well, we have some resources. So we'd be happy to. Yeah, absolutely. Right? Because it is. It's a
double bonus.
Rising tide, all boats rise. And that's the mission of NEMT. That's exactly what we do. Is we want to help everybody.
Great, thank you. So I have one other question here about, how can I customize this this program to be as helpful for my company as possible? And I think today we've talked a lot about the scholarships you can apply, and then how you can take the information that's coming from these webinars and look and apply them to your operations specifically. And we're here to be resources for you as you're going through those. If you have questions and need help, we're available through the website, the Ride Local website. But one thing too, that's an exciting free resource we're offering to folks is to customize the Ride Local program decal for your company. So if you'd like, to have some decals on your vehicles or within on your website, something like that, we can customize the Ride Local Massachusetts logo for your company, and give you a couple different options. So it's a free resource. If that's something you're interested in taking advantage of, please, you can either reach out through the website or you can reach out to me directly. I think everyone here has my contact information from today's invitation to the webinar, but if not, again, you can reach us through the Ride Local Massachusetts website. So lots of ways for you to customize this for your company in the next year. So don't sit back and wait and take advantage of these. This is probably our last big broad question, but when it comes to NEMT, Michael, can you talk about maybe some of the big opportunities for NEMT companies in 2022? And maybe that's another reason we can get folks who are to be interested in going through some of these programs with you.
Well, yeah, that's a broad question, right? So there's a tremendous, yeah. There's a lot of opportunities, right, folks? If you're a transportation provider now that hasn't or is considering becoming an NEMT provider and making that pivot, this could not be a better time. It's not a year from now, and it wasn't maybe even a year ago, 2 years ago for sure. There's an inflection point that's happening inside the industry, and it is the confluence, right? This streams that coming together of healthcare providers and the payers recognizing how important transportation is to get folks to not just medical appointments, but to get them to the gym, get them to church, get them to get groceries. And there are tremendous programs out there that are funded that have a much better margin than probably the business that we're accustomed to, that you need to tap into. So the movement towards it, and the term for those that don't know, it's called the social determinants of health. Just Google that. In fact, Google that and put NEMT with it, and you'll read all weekend long if you want to. You can take a deep dive as you want, and you're going to start seeing this very, very interesting thing that's happening. Is transportation is now the hub of a lot of initiatives are going to rely on and do rely on transportation. And it wasn't an afterthought. It's for the first time, I think, at least in this industry, it's been a very thought out, well-planned expansion of what NEMT transportation is. You see it happening. If you don't believe me, most of the major brokers are pivoting to do non-emergency medical transportation services. Motive Care, right, the largest in the nation, has acquired something around $1 billion of additional companies over the last 12 to 18 months. Close to $1 billion, if not $1 billion, of other companies that are very complementary to this space. So the wave of the future is not, it's called home care, right? Healthcare is now home care. And the entire healthcare industry, because of COVID, is trying to keep people at home and healthy at home and make care of their services at home. And there are hospital systems that are putting hospital beds inside of your, not for convalescence, but are treating rehab and treating step down type of medical conditions inside of your house. So all of that needs wheels. So I'm very encouraged about what that's happening. NEMTAC, I feel like we're close to, if not the tip of the spear on that. I would be happy to talk and expand on it, and write about it. I do have an article coming up about it, whether it's this month or the following month, that you're going to see some more of that. So that's it. If you're not in this space, if you're not in healthcare and you're scary or it's intimidating, talk to me. I'd be happy to talk to you, because it isn't. And it would be a missed opportunity if you're not. If you're halfway in it and you're not fully engaged and you don't see yourself as a healthcare provider, we need to change that way of thinking, because we are healthcare providers, and we're going to be relied upon. This industry is going to be relied upon much more dramatically, but it's all good. This is all very, very positive stuff for the companies that embrace it. So that's number one. Number two is, and really quick, because the time I could go on all day, as everybody knows, my collaborators know, is really what's happening legislatively. And the states, there's been a lot of reports. The Medicaid benefit has been codified. It's in law. NEMT is never going to go away, because it would take a supermajority of Congress to get rid of it. It was in jeopardy just a few short years ago. The TTA has done a remarkable job in advocating for and lobbying for and making sure that the NEMT benefit stays where it is. And with that, because of the making it solid is allowing innovation to happen. So you're seeing states do some very interesting things. The margins are going to improve. There's unequivocally, undoubtedly, the margins for NEMT are going to improve. It's a process, it's a career for a lot of folks, but it's going to happen because we are healthcare providers. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And just so folks know, in almost every issue of Media Watch, we usually have an article related to NEMT just because of how much it's expanding and how much it's in the news. So you'll find a lot of helpful articles throughout the week as part of that newsletter. So keep an eye out for that. Is there anything folks want to say to close it out? Any final questions from anybody?
Something, Amanda. If you're an operator and you're watching this presentation and you're saying to yourself, okay, they've just spent an hour telling us all this stuff and we have the links and we can look it up. If I was on site as your consultant right now, I would tell you, instead of going straight to the deliverables that we have created, do it the opposite way. Sit down with your staff, your managers, your supervisors, your team, and just say, okay, what do we need to improve our company? What are the kind of things that we need to do? And then create kind of like a plan. And then once you have that plan, then go to our resource site. And then you will start not just seeing the deliverables we've created, you will see them in context of your needs. So instead of just saying, okay, that's a great thing that this particular person created, but I don't need that and wasting time, you'll be able to focus on improving your company based on our deliverables, which are in turn based upon the action plan that you've created by talking together with your team prior to looking at our website. So that would be the advice I would be giving you.
Thank you, Joe. That's really helpful. And a good starting spot for folks who, like you said, look at our website and there's a lot of information on there. So, well, I appreciate everybody's time, taking the time today. Also wanted to say, if you liked what you heard today and you like what's in this program, we have an exciting event happening in person at the end of this year. Our Mobilize 2022 conference is happening from October 31st to November 2nd. So save the date and keep an eye out for information about the convention, where we're going to have all sorts of great additional resources available for you. So it's the annual event with the smartest people in the room, which includes most of the folks on this call. I think everybody on this call, because they're the smartest people in the room. So I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you for taking the time to join us, and have a great weekend.